Hey, this is Nick Millivoy.
And this is Jason Shadrick.
And this is the 100 Guitarists podcast, where each week we are talking about one of the 100 guitar players that we think you should know. This week, we are here to discuss the guitar playing of Frank Zappa.
Yes, I was a latecomer to the Zappa party, but in retrospect now, he is one of the bigger influences on the modern jam band scene. Because, as you know, Nick, we cannot get through an episode, not a single one, without bringing it back to the jam band scene.
Sure.
That is the cornerstone of modern music.
If that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. That said, I do actually really agree with what you said. So, you know,
as I've been listening
not even
to
something to agree or disagree about.
Yeah, as I've been listening to more Zappa this last week, I'm like, wow, this could.
Yeah, you're like, wow, Fish is just Frank Zappa light.
Not even light. Not even light. Like, people think, oh man, Fish are the next Grateful Dead. No. I mean, culturally, yes. Culturally. But musically, they are far more connected to Frank Zappa than the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, they're like they're like Frank Zappa for kids.
With better lyrics.
I don't know. Oh,
yeah.
I might actually be able to agree with that, to be honest. But this is, better is sure.
There we go. But we want you to get at us. You can email us 100guitarists@premierguitar.com or give us a call or text, leave a voicemail 319-423-9734. And also make sure to subscribe on whatever platform you're listening or watching this on. Helps out. Send this to your Zappa obsessed friend and let them help us expand our prerogative on the Zappa guitar sound. But yeah, I think that's a great way to get in touch with us. You leave a voicemail, maybe we'll play it on the show.
Before we talk about Frank Zappa, we want to thank none other than the Dunlop Crybaby Wah for making this episode possible. The Crybaby is a signature part of Frank Zappa's sound that he used throughout his career, and he is one of the reasons why this pedal is one of the most iconic guitar effects in all of rock and roll. The Crybaby was first released by the Thomas Organ Company back in 1967, and Dunlop has been stewarding the effect since 1982.
And now there's more than just one Crybaby Wah. They have a whole line of pedals, from the benchmark Crybaby standard wah to the highly tweakable Crybaby 535 Q wah, and a bunch of different signature versions from artists like Eddie Van Halen, Jerry Cantrell, Justin Chancellor, and Geezer Butler. So head on over to Dunlop, check out your Crybaby, get it right in that little sweet spot so you can get that Frank Zappa cocked wah tone.
I gotta say, I think I've owned 3 different types of Crybabies throughout my life, and other than broken volume pedals, which broke, and that's why I've owned multiple volume pedals, it's the effect I've owned the most versions of. And not because it broke, just because I've wanted to try different things. Right now, I am all about, for the past, 5-6 years, I've been all about the Crybaby Mini. I love the Crybaby Mini.
Yeah, Mini's cool. Yeah, the wah was the Crybaby wah. I remember it was like my second pedal probably, and it's come in and out of my signal chain on and off throughout the years, but it's always there. It's always within arm's reach.
I'm trying to think right now what song made me buy a Crybaby. I think it was Voodoo Child.
Yeah, for
was,
me.
Yeah, like I want to do that.
That's it.
Could have been Shaft.
Went to the guitar store. Said I need a wah. They said need to get a Crybaby, so I did. All right, man. Zappa, Frank Zappa. What a staggering amount of work to try and even touch on, really.
Something that you and I were talking about before this is that there's so much stuff. There's so much material. I think you can be, there are many different versions of Zappa fan that you can be. I have at times, in some conversations, I'm like a Zappa aficionado. And in other conversations, I describe myself as not being a huge Zappa fan because I'm talking to people who are you can be so encyclopedic and so knowledgeable. They're like, oh, I'm not that big of a Zappa fan. But then other times people are like, I don't like Zappa. I don't know anything about Zappa. And I start talking about stuff and they're like, wow, you really know a lot about Frank Zappa. There's so many shades of Zappa fandom that it is a matter of like perspective, what type of fan you are. And then there's also so much type of stuff. You talk to people who like Zappa, they might like a whole different set of albums and have absorbed all this. And I'm curious, you and I have never really talked about Frank Zappa, so I'm curious to see how we land with each other here.
I mean, I think I was like a part-time Zappa fan. I would, read about him or Dweezil in the guitar magazines, or Dweezil talking about him in guitar magazines growing up. I would like dip in and hear Peaches or Inca Roads, or My Guitar Wants to Kill Your Mama from the Live G3 record, which was the first Zappa song I ever heard, even though it wasn't performed by Zappa. And then I'd kind of dip in and out. I was never one to really like go through. It's like, wow, okay, I'm gonna dig deep into Zappa until I went, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago, and we did the Dweezil Zappa rig rundown. And for that particular one, we shot the rig rundown, and then we stuck around for, I don't know, 5 or 6 tunes. And it was like in the live setting, and it was like, okay, I get it. And some of those tunes that the band played that night are still some of my favorites. One of them ended up on my little list here. We've each picked 3 Zappa tunes, let's say. One of them I knew right away was going to be on my list. The other 2, I kind of went and cherry picked some of his more well-known guitar-centric records, and kind of looked for, and try to jog my memory on some of the highlights. But it took a live setting for me to understand a bit more and then inspire me to go and dig more into Zappa's catalog. But I'm trying to think if there's any artist like this, but I almost enjoy listening to all the music that was inspired by Frank Zappa more than Frank Zappa.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know that I feel that way.
I mean, number 1 on the list is Fish.
Yeah, I think that's why I don't feel that way.
I mean, that's, and I think they've played a few Zappa tunes. Yeah, of course. But
yeah,
you can tell they were very influenced musically by Zappa. And I don't hear it as much in like Trey's guitar playing and tone, but compositionally, I feel his
tone's kind of the opposite of Frank Zappa's.
Yeah, it's a bit smoother. It's less
fatter,
frantic.
warmer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Controlled.
Less experimental. But yeah, to me, I enjoy the Zappa influenced music more than Zappa himself.
Okay. Look at that. 2 different types of Frank Zappa fans already.
So when was your first like exposure to Zappa?
High school. I remember hearing Apostrophe in high school. Probably Inca Roads. Probably I don't know, a few things, handful of things in high school. I had a friend who was a Zappa fan, but he was like a Zappa fan, right? Like he knew all the stuff, and I was not quite. I didn't like everything that I heard, but I found stuff that I liked going back then. I have somewhere, I wanted to find him, do a little show and tell, but I have the Apostrophe guitar tab book somewhere, and I learned stuff out of there. But yeah, I've sort of had like a come and go relationship with that music. There's stuff I really like, and then I'd sort of like dig deeper and deeper, and end up finding stuff I didn't like. But that's really evolved over time. I still have a lot of Frank Zappa music, as we can get into, that I don't particularly care for. But
is it? I mean,
more and more of it that I really like.
It's feasible to. It's almost impossible, I would think, to like everything he put out, because it's so different.
People, there's fanatics of anything.
There's fanatics, right? Yeah, but like, if you're really into Apostrophe or Overnight Sensation or that era, even going up to Joe's Garage, like, how often are you spinning the London Symphony album.
Right.
You know, or how often are you spinning, you know, the Guitar Record or Jazz from Hell? Like those are so different. So different.
Those are very different. Yeah.
You know, like I get it. And I'm sure like every huge fan base, there are the completists who have all the bootlegs, know
Yeah.
all the set lists, know all, you know, all this. But Zappa was such a mad scientist when it came to his music that he had to just get it out in any way, shape, or form. Which leads me to this question that I wanted to talk about you with. Do you like Zappa better as a composer or an improviser?
Oh man, that is such a great question. Because I think that has sort of shaped that tension between those things has shaped the way I've liked Zappa, what I've liked about Frank Zappa throughout my life. On one hand, as a composer, I would put a third thing in there, and I would put songwriter in there, and
Well,
differentiate composer from songwriter because of the lyrical content.
I
Like,
mean, the lyrical content is not my favorite.
right, so it's like the songwriter part I'm not a big fan of. Composer part I love, and
Yeah.
I've come to love it more. I think when I was younger, it was like I would hear this thing, you know, these cut and paste interrupty kind of things, and be like, okay, that's like a shtick, and I didn't quite get it. Maybe, I mean, I think I always thought it was kind of subversive and cool, but like now I hear that and I'm like, man, this is a big world. And the way he does that stuff and created his own vocabulary with the type of melodies and rhythmic stuff he does, and the way he brought like really complicated rhythms, like he did a lot for complicated rhythms in bringing it into, you know, I don't want to say the mainstream, but you know, to
I mean,
more
I don't think
accepted forms.
I don't think we would listen to Meshuggah the same way if it wasn't for Frank Zappa.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, do you get Steve Vai without Frank Zappa? Do you get Meshuggah without Frank Zappa? Do you get like a lot of jazz stuff that uses complicated rhythms? Like, maybe not. Like so as a composer, I think that's where I hold him the highest. But then I go back and forth, and this is the thing: his guitar playing, his improvising is so awesome. And another thing that I definitely went through phases where I was like, oh, I'm less into Frank Zappa, where I wanted him to improvise like he wrote. You know what I mean?
Well, here's
like
the thing.
I wanted his improvisations to sound like his compositions, but he doesn't sound like his compositions. He has this like blues rock inspired thing in his guitar playing. But now I actually really like love that tension between that and the composed stuff, because he's making that other stuff more palatable and contextualizing it with like rock guitar isms. And it's so awesome. Like he mostly plays pentatonic guitar, or not pentatonic, but tonal guitar stuff. It's not, you know, exceedingly you know, the harmonic content isn't like exceedingly difficult.
But sometimes I find when I'm listening to his music, it's hard to tell where the composition stops. And I mean that, and where the improvisation starts, because his composed parts are, of course, they can be very melodic and diatonic even, you know, all great composers kind of have that as part of their thing. But his composition can be so frenetic and rhythmically jarring that it's like there's no way he wrote that out. There's no way that he's. But then you see, well, I mean, on first listen, what I'm saying is that. But then you would see things like the Apostrophe guitar book or the guitar book that Steve Vai did of his transcriptions, and you're like, oh no, what sounds like he's just going nuts. That's all written out. He's actually coordinating, right? And vice versa, when you hear a guitar solo, you're like, oh, did he write that part out, or did he, you know what I mean? Like, so it's funny because my three choices here kind of cover all those bases and a little bit of the songwriter thing that you talked about.
Yeah, so. Same. I tried to get a variety in there. And for me, something that has made me appreciate him, not more, but differently or deeper, is realizing how much of that stuff, even when I thought I was a more casual Zappa fan, found its way into my own music. Like when I start to think about, like, I was thinking about this earlier, like stuff about Frank Zappa that makes him so different, and then that I've not emulated, but like, you know, I write and have written a lot of like pieces for odd instrumentation with a lot of like tuplety kind of rhythm figures, and like I don't know that I would have ever done that if Frank Zappa didn't exist. And as far as like, I really think a lot about the way to play like an avant-garde guitar solo with all that stuff in there, but make it palatable and make it melodic and harmonic. And you know, that's like, he's the guy who did that. It's really unbelievable how big his world and his effect on music is, even from, you think it's like a periphery or something.
Yeah. And I don't think he could make the music he made without owning his own studio.
No, right? Like it took,
I mean,
so much experimentation and so much time of just like,
and just like
doing it.
he was recording
Not even
so
to mention
much.
the sounds of his music.
Yeah.
Like, we can get into that when we talk about the tracks more, that his sounds are unbelievable and
All right,
totally unique.
let's get to it. We have 6 tracks.
Okay.
You go first. You got
We
first.
each picked our 3 tracks that are, you know, the way they sort of fill out our own worldviews of Frank Zappa. For me,
yes,
the number one place I go, I'm thinking about Frank Zappa, I'm talking to somebody about Frank Zappa, the track that most gets me excited and is most emblematic of his thing. I don't think I'm saying anything groundbreaking here. I think this is the crowd pleaser. I'm going Inca Roads. That, for me, I remember hearing that for the first time and having my mind blown. I thought that this was like the deepest, most complex, most wild piece of music. I still kind of do. I listened to 3 versions of that earlier today to get ready for this taping.
and that's on what record?
That is on, so the original version is on One Size Fits All.
Yep.
There's a live version.
Great cover.
On the
Great cover for that record.
Yeah.
With the
great
couch.
record, great sound. I also, the first version of it that I ever heard is from The Best Band You Never Heard in Your Life, which is a 1988 recording, or recorded from a 1988 concert that was released in 91. They have very different sounds and very different types of performances on them. And so to me, those two play against each other. I like the one, I decided definitively this morning that I like the One Size Fits All version a little bit better. Or maybe a lot better. It rocks harder. I think that his guitar, so the piece itself, so dense. There's so much in there. The melodic line, like, I feel like it covers all of the stuff about Frank Zappa that I want to show to somebody, that I want to like get out there. Cool harmonies, very cool harmonies, cool time stuff. The type of melodic writing is amazing. There's all these lines that are written for the marimba, and like, that is just unbelievable. The groove is super hard. It's so fat and big and round, and it just rocks so hard. And then the solo. So it's like you have this tightly construed thing. The lyrics are kind of fun. Yeah, the lyrics are kind of fun, but they're not hokey to me.
Yeah.
That solo, he does this envelope filter thing. I just think it's like the most beautiful Frank Zappa guitar solo. It's really dynamic and it's really melodic. It has this really free feeling, and that's like the thing about Frank's solos that gets me, is how he can find his space in this really dense piece to incorporate all this stuff with phrasing. He's dealing with, it's what you were saying before, as far as like the rhythmic thing between the composition and the improvisation, is like there's this phrasing thing that just like relates it all together. But he makes it, anybody can hear that solo and not say like, whoa, what is this like crazy avant-garde thing? It's like relatable rock guitar playing. There's some cool tapping stuff near the end of that solo that's super cool. Then you go to The Best Band You Never Heard in Your Life version, and he's using that like cleaner, more direct kind of like confrontationally not dry, that's the wrong word, clean tone with like a lot of flange. That solo also amazing, such a different solo, such a different vibe for the solo, so definitely worth going to. Earlier, I sent you a version of Mike Keneally playing Inca Roads solo acoustic.
Yeah.
I thought I was just going to tap into it for a second, be like, wow, that was cool. I watched the whole thing. I was transfixed. He is an unbelievable musician, and hearing him take that tune and break it down, like, because I was wondering, like, how is this going to break down to like enough raw material that you can play it on acoustic guitar? Go find that version if you're listening and you don't know that version. It's just, Mike Keneally solo Inca Roads. He does it. I was impressed.
All right. Good choice. Solid choice. So what I did for my 3 tracks, I picked one from the 60s, one from the 70s, one from the 80s. And I'm going to start with the 60s Hot Rats album.
Mm-hmm.
And the track which goes back to it's interesting because like he's one of the artists that when you're like, oh, Zappa has a new record, and you're like, okay, is it instrumental or are there vocals on it? Because he could do either one. He's probably one of the few artists whose fan base won't riot if they put out one or the other.
Yeah,
you know what
right.
I mean? Like, oh no, this one's all instrumental. Okay, cool. Oh no, this one's all, traditional songs or whatever. Lyric songs. Okay, cool. This one's all classical. Okay, cool. So the song I'm picking from Hot Rats is Son of Mr. Green Jeans.
I thought you were going to pick Peaches on Regalia.
No, I thought about that, but I was like, it's too middle of the road, right? I think this whole album is super cool. It's a bit longer song. It's almost 9 minutes. It's obviously pretty composed, instrumental. The tones he gets on here are really, really great. And there's a bit of that Cocteau thing going on in the solo. And to me, it's one of the most approachable examples of his guitar playing during this era. It's not super just almost like splatter shot rhythmically. You kind of hear where he's coming from, what kind of vocabulary he's using. It's also a fun one to jam with. It's one of the few Zappa songs where I feel like I can just put it on and play along with it. I think Willie the Pimp is another one on this record. Heard that via Steve Ray Vaughan.
Son of Mr. Green Jeans is in the real book.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that to me is a great example of his late 60s guitar sound. Captain Beefheart's on the record. Shuggy Otis is on the record. Jean-Luc Ponty plays on the record.
15, I believe. I think
that's ridiculous.
When he was on the record, which is insane.
Lowell George playing rhythm guitar. So great album, Hot Rats. Check out Son of Mr. Green Jeans.
Yeah, I love that record.
Check.
It kind of has this like semi 60s easy listening record vibe to it, and then with like rock and roll.
You know what it's not?
What?
Yacht rock. It is not
yacht rock.
I don't care what Rick Beato says or anybody else. It's not yacht rock.
All right. So I think you might think I'm cheating. I don't think I'm cheating.
I'm going to cheat on my third pick, but you go ahead.
Okay, good. All right. So my next favorite Zappa composition.
Oh, is this what you talked about before?
Yeah. It's
okay.
The first 4 tracks of Apostrophe. So that's Don't Eat the Yellow Snow, Nanook Rubs It, St. Alfonso's Pancake Breakfast, and Father Oblivion. So there's a loose narrative about yellow snow, lead-filled snowshoes, dog-do snow cones, and abusing sausage patties that is totally, totally silly. Lots of goofy voices. It is the thing when I talk about not liking Frank Zappa that I describe those things. I'm like, I don't think that his crass humor has like aged well. I don't think that like, interjections of like goofy commercials and stuff like that. Like, I think that's silly. It's like an absurdist cartoon landscape that he's creating that sort of like aged. They've really like aged his music. In this case, I love it. I don't know. Maybe this is just the best version of the form. It's not crude. Not that I'm against things that are crude, but it's not. I I don't know. Okay, so he talks about dog do snow cones, but it's not. It's, you know, there are cruder songs that are sort of like
I mean, at
misogynistic
least
and
he
stuff like
balances
that.
the
This is not that.
crudeness with like a thought out storyline.
There's a thought out storyline, yeah, and I
There
think
is
that
that go through
this
those songs.
thought out storyline and the absurdism of it is actually something that really inspires jam bands. And to get into your pals and fish, I think Gamehenge doesn't exist without
Gamehenge,
these 4 songs.
I
I hate that
wouldn't
I'm
doubt it.
speaking like this
Yes, you're so right. You're so right. When
I
we
hate
talk
that I'm
about
like really going into your
Ichthus
world there.
and the rhombus and the help and friendly book, it is a more evolved version of
And so in
Don't
the
Eat the
Trey episode, when
Yellowstone.
I complain about that silliness, we can remember how much I love these tracks. But to me, there's something about this that is like so classically 70s. Like it's you know, it's conjunction junction, you know?
Yeah.
It's it's Sesame Street. It's, you know, it's just a version of this stuff that existed around that time that I do love. And, you know, in this case, the way that he writes the music is like, I mean, it's cartoon music. He's writing these like really big, deep grooves with cool, odd meters and all these interjections and interpolations in the middle of Don't Eat the Yellow Snow. They play Midnight Sun for a second, the jazz tune. The writing in St. Alfonso's is so dense, and it's like it's reacting to this goofy narrative and what he's saying, and it's just like constant cut and paste and jumping around. It's sort of like it sort of like preempts like all this John Zorn stuff that I like that came later, with like cut and pasty kind of writing. Father Oblivion, that opening guitar riff is really cool, and the sound of his guitar on there, it's like I had never really thought of it before, but listening to it today, it's really upfront. It's like this kind of dry upfront guitar sound that, like you were saying about, like, he had to own a studio to be able to tinker like this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so fascinated with some of the tones he got that, like, I don't even need to hear the content of what he's playing. Sometimes it's like the tone, it's like only Frank Zappa could get this specific guitar sound. And it's varied. Like his sound on Hot Rats is very different, but he always has this like percussive thing. He likes a lot of attack that I really do.
And he likes shorter phrases.
Yes. Yeah.
Like he won't, you think of maybe a bebop guitarist or somebody like Holdsworth even, they'll have these long, or Satriani, he'll have these long phrases, even Vai a little bit, you know, but Zappa was always into punctuated phrases all over the place that kept you guessing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a solid one. All right. My second one, it's coming from 1973. Pre-Apostrophe. We're talking the Overnight Sensation record, which was the album that the Zappa Does Zappa band was playing on the tour. I saw them that first tour. And they played Camarillo Brillo.
Oh, man, I was hoping you were going to say that.
There's not like this epic guitar solo in Camarillo Brillo. And I picked it here for a couple reasons. One, to me, it's like the poppier side of Frank Zappa, if that's really a thing.
If that's,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like the fish is bouncing around the room. You know, it's kind of almost a feel good song, has a strong chorus. That's what I was saying, like the songwriting part. His songwriting prowess in song form is kind of on display here. Yes, the goofy lyrics are there, sure. But his fills on this track are pretty cool. And I like kind of the songcraft he does where he kind of goes the song is in E, but he kind of dips into D, like modulates a little bit into the key of D for the chorus. Great horn parts on here, nice little piano part at the end. And there's a slower version of this that I don't think is as groovy. On one of his live records, I can't remember which one because he has literally a million of them. I mean, I don't even. I mean, his live stuff is his live catalog is crazy.
There's
Dude.
a lot. Yeah.
But Camarillo Brillo, that if somebody were like, hey, I'm a very arm's length Zappa fan, I was like, go listen to Overnight Sensation, check out Camarillo Brillo. You know,
Yeah.
you can play it for somebody and you don't have to be a full on muso to appreciate what's going on there.
Yeah, I think that I agree with that. I think that is a more like Overnight Sensation and Apostrophe, or those sort of go together to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Overnight Sensation is the more palatable of the records for sure. It's not as silly as St. Alfonso's Pancake Breakfast or whatever, but it has all the stuff. It has all the stuff that makes Frank.
It
Zappa,
checks all the
Frank
boxes.
Zappa. And Montana is silly. I'm the Slime is silly, but they're awesome. For me, off that record, I think it's like Camarillo, Brillo, and Zombie Wolf. I saw P-Funk play Zombie Wolf once, and it was if I remember correctly, it was as the lights went up. It was like they played their encore and they do their thing and the lights go up and then they play Zombie Wolf. I'm like, man, that's awesome.
You talk about another good jammable Zappa tune, Zombie Wolf.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good pick.
All right, your third one. I'm 2-0 here. So
okay,
let's see if
so
you can pull out.
I did something a little bit different with my third pick here.
As did I. If you pick the same thing I picked, but you go ahead.
I'd be amazed if we picked the same thing. That'd be kind of awesome. But I wanted to pick something actually that I just heard for the first time. I may have heard this before, but like it just struck me for the first time.
I don't like where this is going.
Oh no. Well, we'll see. There's a lot of Zappa. Like I was popping around and I was thinking about something off of like maybe like Grand Wazoo or something like that, like one of those instrumental composition-y things. And so I wasn't sure where to go. There's a few things I really like, and like I think there's some serious honorable mentions we can go to at the end. Where I was like, these are the obviously we have to mention this. We have to mention this. And then I was just jumping around to see if I missed anything, and I found this and was like, no, we got to talk about this. This is awesome because this is emblematic of things I love and a little bit of what I don't love about Frank Zappa. The track is from the album Studio Tan.
Okay. Okay. Up until that point, I was like, dang.
The album Studio Tan. So it's like I'm looking around and I'm like, I don't know. That cover I've seen before. I feel like maybe it's been like I've played it before, but not really paid attention.
Okay.
Let me listen to Studio Tan.
Okay. Very like almost Andy Warhol-y, bright, vibrant colors.
Allegedly, and this is just from Wikipedia, that is an album cover that he wasn't an approved album cover initially, and is created by Gary Panter.
It looks cool.
So that it looks cool, right? And so it's like I gotta listen to some of this. Revised music for guitar and low budget orchestra.
He was always one to have some of the most literal album song titles.
Dude, what a great title. What an like I gotta listen to this. It is a beautiful modern classical inspired piece with really great harmonies, really cool sus chord kind of harmonies, great like tuplet type rhythms. His tone, he's using that sort of like dry direct sound that he would use on some studio stuff, that like really clean thing. And there's lots of like layers of guitars, like sometimes it's just two playing the melody, and then there's like these interjections where it's like more layered, I believe, guitar things. About 2/3 of the way through, there's a really cool guitar, trombone, trumpet, there might be other stuff in there, combined like soli part, like this composed melody that's like really active and tuplating and sort of like emblematic of that kind of writing of Frank's that I think is awesome. It's like a sincere sounding Zappa piece. It's like one of those, like Sofa Number 1 or something. It's like this thing where it's like his melodicism and there's like a lot of heart in the piece. I feel like there's heart in this piece, but it still has these like falling down the steps, like Stravinsky inspired breakdowns that are like super composed and super tight, but come out of nowhere. I fell in love with this track listening to it for the first time. it ends in the worst way. It ends in such a like Frank Zappa way that I'm like, right, this is also what I don't like. Like the piece ends, and on the album, and I even like this idea in like on paper, I like subversive musical ideas. But he goes right into the song "Let Me Take You to the Beach," which is like a disco rock song with like Frankie Valli style falsetto and silly lyrics. It's a cool song. I don't dislike this song. It's fun. It's funny. The lyrics are funny enough. Like, but I was in such a space listening to revised music for guitar and low budget orchestra that it just cuts right to him singing Frankie Valli style falsetto, and I'm like, it was like
Is
it was
that
the wrong thing to follow it with, and I know that it's like he is trying to create this subversive element to it where it's like, here's a serious thing, here, take this now. I get it, and in theory I like it. Just in this case, I just wanted to hear that one tune, and so then I go back and I listen again. I'm like, no, I love everything about this, but I just listening to that to Let Me Take You to the Beach, it made me forget what came before. I couldn't think of how the other piece went because it's so jarring. So
now?
it's
The interesting thing is on the
yeah.
vinyl, the order was flopped. So Let Me
Oh,
Take You to
really?
the Beach was before revised music.
Oh, okay. So maybe it's. I wonder if it's even his decision. Maybe it's not.
Well, from our friends over at Wikipedia, a lot of litigation in the release of this record. He was quoted as saying, Zappa was saying, I consider it a bootleg or pirate album, and I'm suing the record company in California.
Whoa, okay. Yeah, I wanted to have a piece on here that I had no context. I didn't know about. I just experienced the music and thought of it that way. So I didn't know that.
All right. Well, that's not really cheating.
Cool.
You picked a track. I cheated way better than you. My last pick. Hold on, let me find my notes on this. My last pick was from April 1988.
Okay.
Maybe not the most loved era of Zappa. I think that's the one thing I want to talk about later is what was his best decade. I want you to think about what was Zappa's best decade. And what I am picking, I fully cheated on this one.
Yeah, what
is I'm picking the album Guitar.
Oh, that's not
titled
cheating.
Guitar. Yeah, because I'm picking the whole album. Now, but there's a reason I'm picking the whole
argument.
album.
I like this.
There's a reason that this isn't a. I've never heard of anybody other than Zappa doing this. But basically, what he did to make this record was he took a bunch of live performances from 1979 between 1979 and 1984, right?
Mm-hmm.
He took all of those performances of songs that he liked. Let's say a performance from Zoot Allure, a performance of Zoot Allures from the Terrace Ballroom, December 7th, 1981. He extracts the guitar solo out of that performance and calls it something totally different. In that case, Chalk Pie, right? 1984, September, he played Whipping Post, pulls out the guitar solo, puts it on this record, calls it That's Not Really Reggae. I mean, so he plays, Black Page, Let's Move to Cleveland is on here at least 3 or 4 times. That excerpt of that song, is, Whipping Post is on here a couple times.
Black Page is on here a couple times.
Yeah. And it's like so interesting. It's completely instrumental, obviously, because it's just a collection of guitar solos. And to me, considering the era that they took these performances from, is probably one of the best, most distilled versions of what Frank's live guitar sound was like.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's nothing but guitar solos. I can't imagine anybody really puts this record on just to vibe out to it, like maybe Hot Rats or Overnight Sensation or any of that stuff. But when
I
we're
don't
talking
know.
about Frank's guitar playing, this to me is the great, Steve Vai's all over this album, Ike Willis, Ray White all over this album, Warren Cucurullo is on this album, Vinnie Colaiuta and Chad Wackerman are the drummers on this record. So it's like prime, I think one of the strongest eras as far as terms of lineup of the band in Frank's whole history.
And
so
it's a
you can pick
follow-up
any one of
in
these.
spirit to Shut Up and Play Your Guitar, which is that was released in 81. And what years does that cover? That covers
Earlier, like 76 to 80.
Like,
it overlaps a bit.
Yeah. It overlaps a bit, but I would say that the period on guitar is probably more. Yeah, that's more my element.
But Shut Up and Play Your Guitar. Yeah, because that's also excerpts from tunes.
Yeah, it's the same concept. But yeah, I think I like the guitar period better. Though Variations on the Carlos Santana Secret Chord Progression is maybe one of the greatest titles.
That's right.
Existed.
Right. And there's like 3 of those Shut Up and Play Your Guitar albums.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, how long is this album? Is Guitar is 131 minutes.
2 hours 12 minutes for those on dealing in metric.
There's also one of the track titles is It Ain't Necessarily the St. James Infirmary.
Right?
Man, yeah, great choice. I think I think there's an argument that this is like that guitar is like an art piece. It's like it's its own composition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a sound art.
Right. We're getting to it. Like I said before, what was his strongest decade? I think it's not even close.
70s.
Yeah, has to. I mean, 70s Zappa, I think, as far as commercial success, critical success, sheer output. I mean, the dude put out 3 records in 1970, 2 in 71, 3 in 72, 1 in 73, 3 in 70, 2 in 74, 2 in 75, 76, 3 in 78, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in 79. That's 10 years.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know how many. That's a lot of records. I don't want to count them. That's probably 15 records he put out in the 70s.
So much. And then adding out the live performances and stuff like that. That was his decade for sure. But I also feel like his output is such a linear thing that, like, you get to the 80s and it's that needed to build upon what came before it. And yeah, everything was this continuous trajectory that he was on.
One last game I want to play before we wrap this up. And the game is
we got to throw some honorable mentions in there too.
We'll get to that in a second, but this has to do with the guitar record.
Okay.
We're going to play Did They Get It Right? And what I mean by that is 1989, the Grammys for Best Instrumental Rock Performance. Okay,
Yeah.
do not Google this, Nick.
I'm not good. Hands up.
So I'm going to go through the nominees. Okay. You tell me who you would have voted for. Okay.
Okay.
Jeff Healey Band, Hideaway.
Okay.
Jimmy Page, Rites of Winter from the Outrider record. Okay. Joe Satriani, Surfing with the Alien. Frank Zappa, Guitar, the guitar record. Okay. And Carlos Santana's Blues for Salvador.
Oh, man.
So the artists, if we go back, we have Jeff Healey, Jimmy Page, Satriani, Zappa, and Santana.
So not who I think won, but who I think should win of those.
Who do you think should, to see if the Grammys got it right in 1989?
Of those, guitar might be my favorite. Jeff Healey, Jimmy Page, Carlos. Yeah, guitar is probably my favorite of them. But because of the way it's created, I wouldn't want to give that the award. Because it's an archival thing.
Was that so I guess my real question is, what is the best rock instrumental performance of 1989 from those 5?
Yeah, like musically speaking, I'd pick guitar, but it's not from 1989. It's not that's not a contemporary thing. So it's like, I don't know that.
What do you mean? These are all nominated the same year.
No, I know it came out that year, but it's an archival release, right? It's like it's the cheating a little bit. It's like, all right, it's a live thing. It's not. I don't know that Jeff Healey record very well, but I feel like that's probably what deserved it. Yeah, that's what I'll go with. Tell me.
I'm gonna go with Joe Satriani, because I think in retrospect,
I forgot that. Sorry, I forgot that Joe Satriani was in there.
In retrospect, you talk about
of those Surfing with the Alien,
game-changing rock instrumental performances. It's Surfing with the Alien, no question.
Yeah, definitely.
Right,
definitely.
Joe did not win that year. Neither did Frank Zappa, and neither did Jeff Healey. It was Carlos Santana's "Blues for Salvador" record that won.
I don't think they got it right.
I'm gonna say, no, they didn't get it right.
No,
on that one. Now the next year,
I lost that one. I couldn't maintain all the stuff in my head. Yeah.
Now the next year, the album that won was Jeff Beck's Guitar Shop. Yes, they got it right.
Okay. You got another one? Can we play one more?
Yeah. Okay. 91. Here you go. This is a big one. 91.
Okay.
Allman Brothers Band. Eric Johnson, Avia Musicom.
Okay.
Joe Satriani's Flying in a Blue Dream. Steve Vai's Passion and Warfare. And Jimmy Vaughn and Stevie Ray Vaughan, Family Style.
And what's the name of the category again?
Best rock instrumental performance. But it's weird because some of these are listed as songs and some as albums. So we'll say them in general.
Weird. I'm going with Jimmy and Stevie. That's who I think should have won.
They won.
Oh, good. I think they got it right then.
Yeah. Also, you got to think Stevie had just died.
Musically, thinking from a purely musical point of view, that's my opinion, and then that only bolsters it more. The
only one I would have maybe thought about was that Steve Vai's Passion and Warfare record. That was a really big one for him. The next year was Eric Johnson's Cliffs of Dover. So Eric did get his Cliffs of Dover one. Going back to 1989, in 1988, Zappa won for Jazz from Hell. And he was going against Herbie Hancock with Dweezil Zappa and Terry Bozzio.
Wait, say this again. What year was that?
1988. Frank Zappa won. Yep. And Zappa one of the other nominees was Dweezil Zappa with Herbie Hancock and Terry Bozzio.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm looking at it now.
Springsteen, your boy.
Yeah.
Paradise by the Sea.
Stevie Ray Vaughan tracks.
Classic rock instrumental artist, Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. Yeah, Stevie Ray Vaughan was nominated twice.
I gotta say, Jazz from Hell, they got it right. I am a big Jazz from Hell fan, and I was sorry that I could not bring that up somewhere else in this episode to talk about it more extensively. But there's only guitar on one track. Great track, Saint Etienne, that I'm probably saying wrong. But that record, otherwise, other than that one track that has guitar on it, was all created on Synclavier. I love that record. I think it might be like my favorite Frank Zappa record at this point in my life, for whatever that's worth. So in 1988, I would say they definitely got that.
This has to be one of the most, small digression, this has to be one of the most all over the map categories for the Grammys. In 2000, here are the nominees.
I'm into this, yeah.
Steve Vai, Green Day, Jeff Beck, Moby, and Santana featuring Eric Clapton. Like, what? Okay.
So here's what I don't understand. What happened after 2011? They discontinued this.
Yeah, they had a big shakeup. This was one of my favorite records, my favorite categories.
This is the best category.
Yeah.
This is the category that... though I will say, looking at it, I think there were probably some years that they got the nominations wrong. I'm looking like...
Bruce Springsteen won in 2008 over Satriani and Vai.
Well,
Metallica
listen, though, look at the context here. Satriani and Vai are on one of those guys are nominated
on just about
most
month.
years.
Yeah.
And like, look, this is no shade to those obviously completely amazing, phenomenal musicians who will cover in with their own space. But come on, they're in all of them.
Right.
I'm looking. Okay, there's a run here. Let's see. Where does they? All right, Steve Vai in 2010. Neither of them were nominated in 2009, but then we got 2008 Satriani and Vai, 2007 Satriani, 2006 Vai, 2005 Vai, 2004. But like, you get the point.
2003 Satriani, 2002 both of them, 2001 Satriani, 2000 Vai.
Like, all right.
1999, how far can we go? Satriani. 98 Vai and Satriani. Ooh, Respect the
Everclear
Wind.
were nominated in 99. That's pretty fascinating.
97. How did Edward Van Halen and Alex Van Halen's Respect the Wind not win that one? Satriani. Yeah, Satriani and Vai are in the mix every year. They're in the mix every year. So,
and like, I'm not saying that they don't deserve it. I'm just saying maybe there are other people that deserve it.
That's true. Yeah.
So, that in a way sort of maybe pigeonholed this category and could have led to its demise. I wish they brought this category back. That'd be very cool.
I think too. 2009, Zappa Plays Zappa with Steve Vai. They won for Peaches and Regalia. I tell you what, Vai and Satriani were Grammy machines in the last 15, 20 years of this category or whatever.
Well, Grammy nomination machines.
Nomination machine, right. Exactly.
Because Vi won in 94.
I don't know if Satriani ever won.
And Satriani never won. I guess that's why he kept getting nominated. That's not cool.
See, he should have won something.
Yeah, Surfing with the Alien, no doubt should have
won. That should have won. Well, okay. I'm glad we fixed the Grammys.
We fixed the Grammys. I want to fix one thing here before anybody comments it, that we didn't mention Black Napkins. One of the most iconic Frank Zappa guitar solos of all time. To me, it seemed too obvious to choose.
Right.
And so I didn't. But Black Napkins, there are excerpts of Black Napkins like all over the guitar record. So
yes.
So we did choose it. You chose it.
We did. All right. So you can get at us with all your Zappa opinions at 100 Guitarist, 100 Guitarist at premierguitar.com. Call and text and leave a voicemail at 319-423-9734. And make sure to rate, review, subscribe, share, send this to your Zappa-obsessed cousin so he can yell at me for picking the wrong album full of guitar solos.
And thank you to the iconic Crybaby Wah and to Jim Dunlop for sponsoring this episode today. Check out one of the many varieties, or even three of the many varieties of the Crybaby, and find your Frank Zappa tones, find all of your favorite wah tones.
That's right. All right, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.